Welcome to Quora Anonymous. If this is your first time and you like the video, please like and subscribe. If you would like to read along, turn on closed captioning with the 3 dots in the upper right corner. Now, let's begin. What was the most blatant scam a customer has ever failed to get away with? Okay, there were many, but one was pretty interesting. I worked at a big house improvement store. This guy would come into our lumber department and buy very expensive plywood. It's used to build wood cabinets, some near $100 a sheet. He had us cut the plywood to exact measurements so he could just put the cabinets together in his shop. Now in this store we have something called a cull cart, where we would put lumber on and mark it down 70% off. So a sheet that was $100 would be about $30. So he would put it on his cart and wheel it away. Now at the end of the night it would be brought over to me, and I couldn't put it back on the shelf. I had to mark it down and sell it the next day, because when he walked away with it, he would leave it at the other end of the store, so it looked like nobody wanted it after all. He would send his workers in the next day to purchase it at 70% off. Now after a little while of this happening, I caught on and let our loss prevention know about it. They couldn't figure out how to curtail this process without getting sued. Guess what I started doing? Haha. I started taking it to the saw and cutting off about an inch on different pieces. So I was told his cabinets came out all lopsided and crooked. Okay, next scam. It was at the paint department. People would come in and have their paint color mixed, and they would buy it, but brought them back because they said we mixed it wrong and got their money back. Then we would have to mark it way down to almost nothing. So they would have their workers come in and buy the paint the next day. Well, I caught on to this, so when they did that, I would add a little bit of purple tint or black tint to it. They would buy it back, do the whole job, and when their customer went to pay them would say, "That is not the color my wife picked out, you have to redo it, or I'm not paying for it." I love messing with scammers. I doubt that this is the most blatant scam, but it's probably the worst and most ridiculous one I have ever personally dealt with. When I was nearly out of high school, I started working at my local Walgreens. A woman came in one afternoon and started loading up a cart with a little bit of everything until it was absolutely overflowing. The store had some good deals, but with 2 other grocery stores within walking distance and a Walmart right down the road, which also had cheaper prices, this was a bit unusual. The woman finally came to the counter and was apparently pleased with some of the sale items, including one BOGO deal on slippers. She ended up buying over $200 worth of merchandise. About 2 minutes after she left, as I'm ringing up another customer, she comes back appearing quite flustered and yells at me. I'm going to grab another pair of the slippers because mine blew away. Now, it was a bit of a windy day, normal for the town I lived in, but I didn't have the authority to just let her take an extra pair. I tried to think of a solution. They blew away in the parking lot. Give me just a moment to finish helping these customers and I'll come out and help you find them, I offered. I figured they couldn't have gone very far as they were sturdy slippers in somewhat heavy cardboard packaging. No. I don't need you to come out here, they're gone. At this point I'm a bit surprised because she had seemed so pleasant moments earlier. Okay, well, I'll have to get a manager to approve you taking an extra pair, but it shouldn't be an issue, I said. I picked up the phone as I continued ringing up the other customers and called for a manager. They told me it would be a few minutes. I conveyed this to the woman in question, who was now extremely angry. Forget it. If you won't give me a new pair, I'll just bring everything back, she shouted. I assured her that if she could just wait for the manager, we would do everything we could to get her taken care of. She insisted that she doesn't have time for this, but stood there, red in the face, waiting for the manager anyway. Mind you, she had been perusing the store seemingly without a care or obligation in the world not 10 minutes earlier. A manager finally came and listened to the woman scream about just needing to take another pair. The manager offered to go help her find the other one, which was not received well. The manager then offered another possible solution that included using her receipt to return the missing slippers, mark them defective in the system, and then allow her to take the new slippers, just so the inventory would be correct. The woman refused to accept any of this and instead decided to bring back everything she had purchased and return it all for a full refund. Well, everything but the flying slippers. Yes, this took forever. And she complained and belittled us the entire time. All that over a pair of slippers. I still don't understand. My grandma used to own a dancewear and fancy dress shop, totally self-made, and created the business from nothing. A lot of the dance outfits in there, she had made herself, and had a systematic pricing method, based on what kind of trimmings, ribbon, Swarovski crystals, lace etc., how many parts, top, bottoms, leg/arm cuffs, hair accessory, and the quality/price of the materials used. She knew the price of every item in her shop. There was the certain group of customers who used to come in occasionally, intentionally in a large group who split up, and asked lots of questions, to catch your attention and distract you. The shop wasn't very large, so when all this commotion was going on, you couldn't really keep an eye on everything they were doing, which was their intention I guess. One of their favorite scams was to carefully unthread a price tag from a cheap outfit, usually a small children's one, and thread it through the seams of a different, more expensive one, and just pull that outfit's original tag off, and hide it behind the rail. So then they'd come to the till, and try and buy an expensive outfit for a stupidly low price. We knew they were lying, because my grandma had made the outfit herself, and had a system for pricing. But you can't just outright call someone a liar, especially some of these customers and their dads/husbands were known for being violent, and would come in, and threaten shop workers. So the way to handle it, was to apologize, and say that the costume had been tagged incorrectly, and point this out, by using the incorrect size or item description in the label, for instance, 3-piece striped green lycra, or 5-piece burgundy crushed velour. As each item was handmade and unique, to get two items with the exact same tag, but different prices was very unlikely, so there was always a discrepancy. They would always argue back with, the law says that you have to sell it to us for the lowest advertised price, so that's your mistake. We want to buy it for £XXX.XX as stated on the tag. Now, I don't know the exact wording of the law, or its caveats, but this is kind of true overall, so we would just refuse to sell it to them altogether. There was obviously a lot of arguing, and a bit of intimidation, but this always worked, and we never got scammed. Not a scam, but this group of people used to also steal outfits, our premium Latin dresses. They used to bring their kids in, and tell them to run riot in the shop, so we wouldn't see what they were taking into the dressing room. They'd leave with 2 to 3 £180 dresses hidden in their clothes. We ended up chaining the dresses together on the rail, but they still found a way. We stopped stocking those dresses and they eventually stopped coming in. Loss of business, because they always did end up spending a lot of money, but they also stole a lot of potential income. When I was a broke college student in the early 1990s, I worked in a busy bookstore in a mall in downtown Boston. The register was located at the front of the store, on a raised platform, so we could monitor customers as they came and left. One day when I was working the register, I noticed a cute guy into the store carrying a metal clipboard, the kind that had a compartment for storing a notebook or additional paperwork. After disappearing into the back of the store, the guy returned moments later, and got in line. When it was his turn, he smiled at me, opened the clipboard's compartment, and took out an obscure computer programming book that cost a good $50 or so. He'd received it as a gift, he said, and was hoping to return it for cash, but didn't have a receipt. Instantly suspicious, I checked the computer inventory, and found that we hadn't sold the title all year, and were supposed to have one copy on the shelf. Despite the line forming behind him, I excused myself, and quickly walked back to the computer section. There, I found a gap where that one copy should have been. I returned to the register and asked him, "You're sure they got it here?" "Yes," he responded. "Because we haven't sold a copy all year, and we are supposed to have one in stock, but it's not there." His smile wavered slightly as he swallowed uncomfortably. It was a standoff. I couldn't accuse him of stealing it, we didn't have cameras, and I had no hard evidence. At the same time, the thought of letting him waltz out the door with what amounted to more money than I made an entire evening shift killed me. So I looked him in the eye and said calmly, "Do you want to leave now?" He paused for a moment, then said, "Yes," grabbed his clipboard, leaving the book, and darted for the door. The customers in line who witnessed the exchange broke out into laughter and applause. One even called me Dirty Harriet. But later that shift, when my manager heard about it, she scolded me. Even though he was clearly running a scam, the customer's always right, she said. Should it ever happen again, I was to just hand over the cash. What would you have done? I was an assistant manager at a large chain bookstore. One day, an older, well-dressed man came into the store. I watched him walk to the medical book section, pull a textbook, I don't remember the exact value, but it was around $150, off the shelf, and walk up to the cash registers. He then explained to the associate that he had purchased the book the week prior, it was the wrong book, and he wanted a refund. She asked for the receipt, which he didn't have, so she told him that she would have to contact her manager, me. I came up to the counter and politely asked the customer what he needed help with. Keep in mind that I watched him take the book off the shelf, so I knew that he was scamming us. I asked him at which of our stores he had bought the book. He said that it was ours, and acted surprised that I didn't recognize him because I'm a very regular customer, and, in fact, you rang me up. Our system allowed us to search the sale history of every book in our inventory, so I looked it up, and showed him that the last sale of that particular book was more than 1 year ago, and the most recent sale in our region was more than 3 months prior, at a store 250 miles away. At this point, he became rather irate, and asked me if I was calling him liar. I responded that no, but maybe he was mistaken, and had purchased the book from one of our competitors. Again, he started yelling at me, and demanded that I pull up the security footage from the week before to prove that he had, indeed, purchased the book. I responded with, "Okay, and while we're at it, I'll pull up the footage from 10 minutes ago that clearly shows you taking the book off the shelf and bringing it to the register. Then, we can call the police and see what they want to do." He threw the book on the floor and ran out the door. We didn't have security cameras in the store. Man walks into a bar. I'm the only person, besides the bartender, who isn't there at the time. I'm waiting for a few friends to come and play pool, but I know the bartender, so I'm chatting to him. A bloke walks in and orders half a pint. Now here in the UK, walking into a bar as a bloke and ordering half a pint is about the same as walking in and screaming I do not have any male genitalia. So yeah, the bartender is smooth though, and starts pouring regardless of this sudden weird dimensional shift away from normality, and lays the general hospitality patter on him. You know, the good night so far mate, or the is it still raining out there, etc. Meanwhile the bloke is completely unreceptive, and is fiddling with change, and notes from his wallet. Now bit of background. A change raiser scam. This is a small-time scam used to convince a shop or trader that they owe you more change than they do. Usual technique is paying for something in a note, but before they can close the drawer, after sorting your change, offer instead to pay in the exact change that you had in your pocket all along. The next bit is tricky as you have to convince the shopkeeper to hand you the change for the note as well as your old note back. Usually done by trying to confuse the shopkeeper about what money is actually in which hand. So the guy tries to pay in a note and the bartender obliges sorting out the change for the guy on the spot. The guy then offers exact change instead, but the bartender says sorry I have already sorted your change now, and with that, he closes the till. Says thanks anyway, and you can see the gears in this guy's head turning. The bartender approaches me, and we have a chuckle as we both know what has just happened. The guy then tries to kick off saying I won't be treated like this, and I want a refund. The bartender informs him that no refunds can be given once a drink has been poured. He seems to chew this over, looking for a way to get his note back. He gives up, pours the rest of the drink into a drip tray and storms out. When trying to scam, bartenders have seen a lot of tricks before. Don't pick them as marks. The aftermath of this scam was so painful to watch that I still cringe when I reflect on it today. A few years ago, I had dinner with a friend at a local mammoth. A mammoth. The eatery was bustling that night, a common occurrence every Friday. As I ate my noodles, I could not help but notice a table located diagonally from mine. I have no idea what was it about the three men sitting there that made me train my attention on them, but the longer I stole glances at them, the more I realized that one of them was a stranger to the other two. The pair had similar looks of discomfort as a stranger, nervousness on his face and sweating buckets, offered to share his bowl of gravy with them. One of the pair rejected his offer graciously, but irritation was clearly reflected on his face. I mentioned this incident to my friend, who brushed it off with an "The restaurant is so full, everyone should learn how to share." Convinced that I was probably paranoid, I looked away. A short while later, the stranger stood up and walked to the sink to wash his hands. And then began walking away from the eatery without paying for his food. I gasped. So this is what it was all about. Unbeknownst to us all, the manager of the eatery was observing the trio quite closely too. He gave a loud hoy, ran after the stranger, caught him by the scruff of his neck, and walked him back to the shop. The stranger began mewling his apologies. "I'm so sorry, I did not inform my friends that they were supposed to pay for me." The manager brought the stranger to his friends. "Are you supposed to pay the food cost for this person?" "No, we do not know this man." The manager turned to the stranger. "Why are you lying? Why did you not pay for your food?" The stranger touched the arm of his friend. "Please, I shared my gravy with you." The friend slammed his fist onto the table. "Do not touch me." The eatery fell into dead silence. The manager then pulled the stranger into the back of the eatery, after which he was not seen again. As if a weight had been lifted, the mammoth immediately resumed its usual buzz. Both my friend and I kept blinking at each other. I returned to the shop a few days later and questioned a waiter on the aftermath of the incident and the stranger, of course. "Oh, this guy is a regular, he pulls this off all the time. We always keep a lookout for him." Whatever feelings of sympathy I had for the stranger turned into a mixture of sadness and wonder. Why the same scam at the same shop? This just happened to me recently. I'm a Dell repair field tech. I get assignments from Dell support to replace faulty hardware, to correct warranty defective computers. I had this job ticket to replace a faulty power supply for a desktop computer. When I got to the client's home, the brother of the computer owner let me in and told me that I was to speak to his brother on the phone before I did anything. He then called him on his cell phone and handed it to me. Me, "Hello, I'm the tech here to repair your computer. How can I help you?" Scammer, "Yeah, hi. Listen, I don't want you to touch my computer. I want to do the work myself." Me, "I understand, sir. However, if you perform the work, and you were to inadvertently damage the system, Dell is not responsible for the cost to replace anything. It falls on you, because a certified Dell tech, i.e., me, did not do the work." Scammer, yeah, I know. It's just that I don't want anyone else but me touching my computer. Just leave the power supply, and I'll do it myself when I come back from work. Me, "Yes sir, but if I were to do the work, you're assured that the work will be done by a trained and certified technician who'll correctly perform the work, and the warranty automatically extends to my work as well. Meaning that, if in the highly unlikely event I were to damage anything, the parts get replaced by Dell for free. And on top of that, if I replace your power supply and the computer still doesn't work, I'll diagnose it for free in order to ascertain what additional parts are required, and I can order the parts for replacement by tomorrow, again, for free." Scammer, "Listen, I don't care about that. This is what I want you to do. I want you to leave the power supply with my brother, call Dell, and tell them to send me a whole new computer, because the power supply failed." Me, "You want me to what, sir?" Scammer, sounding exasperated, Tell Dell to send me a new computer. Me, sir, I can't do that without first replacing the power supply and thoroughly testing the unit. Scammer, I don't want you touching my computer. Me, yes sir, I won't touch your computer without your permission. It's just that I can't just tell Dell to replace something without at least testing it to figure out what needs to be replaced. Scammer, I told you, don't touch my computer. Me, sir, Scammer, listen, you're going to call Dell and tell them to give me a new computer, or I'll tell them you did a lousy job and I'll get you fired. Me, you'll do what? Scammer, I'll get you fired if you don't get me a new computer. A few seconds pass. Me, yes, and no, sir. Scammer, what? Me, yes, I can leave the power supply for you to install yourself, if that's what you want. And, Dell will want you to ship back the old power supply within 10 business days. Otherwise, Dell will charge you for it. I'll leave the shipping box it came in with a prepaid return shipping label attached. And no, nothing you can say will make me tell Dell to replace your computer without my thoroughly inspecting it and doing diagnostic tests to see if it's warranted. Now, as I said before, I'll be glad to perform the replacement and diagnose your computer for any problems, but I won't and can't just tell Dell to replace your computer without doing a thorough inspection. I should mention, at this point, that the phone the brother had handed me was on speaker the whole time, and the brother had heard every word spoken. Scammer, just leave the power supply with my brother and get out. You better hope you still have a job in the morning. Me, thank you sir, and have a nice day. When I hung up and handed the phone back to the scammer's brother, he apologized to me and I said, don't worry about it. In his presence, I called Dell to tell them the client didn't want me to perform the work, and he wanted me to leave the parts at the job site. Dell said it was now in the case notes, and they gave me a case number to prove that I did everything I was supposed to do. I gave a copy of the case number to the brother. I didn't mention the threat to Dell in front of the brother, nor did I say anything about the scam, yet. The brother accepted the box with the power supply in it, and I had him sign off on what little work I did and I left. When I got back to my car, I drove a few blocks away to get a coffee and sat in my car while I wrote out everything in an email that transpired about the scam and the threat to get me fired if I didn't comply. Word for word. I emailed it to my manager, Dell, and my HR department to cover myself. My manager said that I did everything right and not to worry. A few days later, ours, again, confirmed it. The next day, another technician was assigned to return to the same job site and the scammer said the same thing to him. Surprise. Surprise. The scammer is now banned from getting on-site service. If he wants something repaired under warranty, he either has to ship it to a Dell authorized depot center, or bring it in person to a certified Dell repair facility. I worked as a customs broker, clearing my clients' goods through Canada Customs. One client had an employee transferring to Canada, and he was bringing all his personal effects with him. Before he came to Canada he inquired how much wine he was allowed to bring as an immigrant, because he was a wine collector, and wanted his collection in Canada with him. I checked the rules, and found he could bring 750 liters with him, as long as the wine met the conditions of personal effects. One of those conditions is that you have owned the item for at least 6 months. You can't go on a shopping spree the week before you move to Canada. Even though it looked like his wine was allowed into Canada without the usual duty and taxes, you still need a permit from the liquor board. To get that I needed proof of value or at least a good estimate. The client promptly presented me with invoices to show value. The invoices clearly stated purchased for export. He had bought the wine for export, thereby avoiding France's duty and taxes, and he bought it all at once, in the last month. I dutifully trooped to the liquor board, and when they were about to give me a settler's effects permit for no charge I pointed out the notation on the invoice. Suddenly things changed, and a bill was run up for almost $10,000 in duty and taxes. Now before you go jumping all over me for turning in my own client I must remind you. A customs broker holds a government issued license. The first rule of holding that license is thou shalt protect the revenues of the crown. A customs broker caught helping anyone avoid the imports ends up sharing a cell with the importer. If you made it this far, you owe it to yourself to subscribe.